You're waiting to hear back after the interview. No news yet. And somehow, the silence feels worse than a straight-up no would. You've checked your phone 4 times in the last 10 minutes, and nothing has changed each time. By the time this is over, you'll have checked more times than you can count. And every single check will have told you nothing. The obvious assumption is that bad news is the thing to dread. The silence beforehand is just a neutral waiting room you sit in before the real stress arrives. Except people often describe relief the moment a rejection finally lands. Not happiness, relief, which is strange if bad news was supposed to be the scary part all along. In a 2016 study, researchers had people play a simple game, guessing where a hidden reward might be, while a shock was possible, depending on the outcome. Using a computational model that tracked exactly how uncertain each person's guess was on a moment-by-moment basis, they measured stress through pupil dilation and skin response. Stress peaked not during the certain shock, but during the moments of highest modeled uncertainty, even before either outcome had happened. The moment the outcome was announced, good or bad, that simulation could finally shut down. That's often what relief actually is, not happiness about the news, but the sheer stop of the simulating. Here's the mechanism. A certain bad outcome gives your brain exactly one problem to solve. An uncertain one forces it to simulate every possible outcome at once, with no way to commit to a plan for any of them. That constant unresolved simulation is its own kind of exhausting, even before anything bad has actually happened. Psychologists call the broader trait intolerance of uncertainty, and it shows up as a common thread across anxiety. The waiting room, the unanswered message, the test result still processing. In each case, it's not the possible bad outcome doing most of the damage. It's the not knowing. Clinical psychologists even have a name and a measurement for how much this varies from person to person. The Intolerance of Uncertainty Scale, developed in the 1990s, which reliably predicts anxiety levels across completely different kinds of worry, from health to relationships to money. And once you notice it, it shows up everywhere waiting has a shape. The test results still processing. The flight delayed with no announced reason. The message you sent that hasn't been read yet. The jury still deliberating. In every case, the actual outcome, once it arrives, is often easier to sit with than the stretch of time before it did. One caveat worth being precise about. This effect is clearest when the bad outcome is roughly as serious as the uncertain one. It doesn't mean any bad news is easier than any uncertainty. A truly severe certain outcome isn't something people prefer over ambiguity. The finding is about moderate stakes, not a universal rule that clarity always wins no matter how bad the clarity is. Waiting to hear whether a minor scrape needs stitches is worse than just being told it does. Waiting to hear a life-changing diagnosis is a different category entirely. Nobody is claiming otherwise. So the dread you feel refreshing your inbox isn't really about what the email might say. It's your brain running every version of that email at once, with nowhere to put any of that energy down. A no would at least give it somewhere to land. The waiting itself isn't a warm-up to the stress. For your brain, the waiting is the stress. If you can't get the answer any faster, you can still take away some of what makes waiting so hard. Give your brain a plan for each realistic outcome in advance, not to predict which one happens, just so it has somewhere to put the energy it's currently spending on simulating everything at once. A plan for a bad outcome isn't pessimism here. It's relief, borrowed early. If the interview goes well, you already know your first move, a thank you note, maybe a start date. If it doesn't, you already know that too. Which job board you'll check first, who you'll tell, what you'll do this weekend instead. Either way, there's now a next step waiting instead of a blank space. There's a second technique worth pairing with that. Give the uncertainty a deadline. Pick a specific time you'll allow yourself to actively worry about it. 10 minutes, once a day. And when the thought shows up outside that window, remind yourself it already has an appointment. This is a real technique used in anxiety treatment, and it works for the same reason the plan does. It gives the open simulation somewhere to go, instead of running continuously in the background. The interview result was never really the scary part. The not knowing was doing all the work. That's one more piece of being human, decoded.